in particular breast cancer. Now, if you take an Asian person and you take them out of Asia and you bring them here to the United States, over time they will develop that increased risk of breast cancer that we have here. And that is because they will begin to consume our toxic U.S. food, including soy. So we have to look very critically at what are we doing to our food sources that are making them toxic. And when we see these inconclusive studies, 1 minute eggs are safe, the next minute they're not, we have to question, is it really the egg or is it what we've done to the egg? And so let's look at eggs for a minute and see, what did we do to eggs? Where are eggs coming from? So what do we know about eggs? You know, we know that you can buy eggs organic or you can buy them non-organic. We know that you can buy eggs pasture-raised and cage-free, or you can buy them from caged hens. So what do we know about eggs? Eggs contain a lot of lutein and zeaxanthin, which is important for the health of our eyes and vision. I talked about choline just a few minutes ago, which is an amino acid that's critical as what we call brain food. It is heavily used in our nervous system. So Alzheimer's dementia, for example, is due to the inability of our nerves to make acetylcholine. Eggs are a natural source of vitamin B12. And this is really important. Eggs are an important source of amino acids tryptophan and tyrosine. Now, these are antioxidants that prevent coronary artery disease as well as cancer. And this is very well researched in the literature. So eggs prevent cancer and they prevent heart attacks. So how is the Journal of the American Medical Association telling us that it increases the risk of heart attacks? Again, we have to look at what are we doing to our eggs? What are we doing to the hens that are being asked to lay these eggs? So when we look at that, we begin to see and we begin to unravel this mystery about eggs. So is there a difference between free-roaming, cage-free eggs versus caged eggs? In other words, whether the hens are allowed to roam free or whether they're caged. Is there a difference? And it turns out there actually is. Eggs laid by hens that are fed organic feed, their natural source of food, and that are allowed to roam free are actually much higher in nutrition than hens that are caged. Again, these are shown in nutrition studies. So these are things that we can all go see for ourselves. These are not things that are mysterious. So organic pasteurized eggs, or pastured eggs, not pasteurized, but pastured. In other words, they're allowed to roam free in pastures. So they're raised on certified organic feed. They're not given a vegetarian diet because hens are not vegetarians, right? They're not given what are called nutrient-enhanced eggs because those are unhealthy. Most of the time when things are enhanced or fortified, they're synthetic and artificial, and that ruins an otherwise perfectly good food. Organic pastured eggs are not enhanced with nutrients. So basically, they make their nutrients all by themselves because they're fed properly and they're raised properly. And so they have 2/3 more vitamin A, twice as much omega-3, 3 times more vitamin E, and 7 times more beta-carotene than regular eggs. They're not exposed to pesticides. They're not exposed to antibiotics. They're not exposed to synthetic hormones. And they're not fed genetically modified soy or corn. And this is why they're healthier overall. And if you eat a healthier egg, you'll be healthier. If you eat a sick egg, you'll be sick. So basically, these are just a few tips as to why are these studies so confusing? Why can't we get a straight answer out of anyone about eggs or cholesterol? It's because there are too many confounding factors. So again, when you go and you ask someone to remember what they ate last month or last year, did you ask them if it was all organic? Did you ask them if they have organic pasture-raised eggs? Or did you just ask about eggs in general? Did you ask them if they put a bunch of cheese, artificial cheese, on their eggs? Or what they cooked their eggs in? Or what they had with their eggs? And the answer is no, they didn't. They didn't control for any of those things. They didn't control for how much sugar those people consumed. And so it's no wonder that they come up with confusing results. So when you buy your eggs, if you want to avoid all this confusion and if you want to avoid an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, please make sure that you're getting organic, pasture-raised, cage-free eggs. Very, very important. We have the same issue with aspirin that we'll talk about today a little bit later on our show as well. So again, what is the difference? What makes a good egg a good egg? So when we pasteurize our eggs, what happens to them? They're heated, basically to just before they would become solid, and that's to destroy harmful pathogens. While that makes sense on the surface, what happens is it changes the quality of the eggs. What about vegetarian eggs? A lot of people are buying vegetarian eggs because they assume they'll be healthier. So what's a vegetarian egg? It's an egg laid by a hen that was fed a vegetarian diet. Again, on the surface, that doesn't sound so bad, but until we figure out that chickens are not vegetarians, and if they're not allowed to eat what they would eat in the wild, they can't make good eggs. It's just that simple. And so vegetarian eggs are not as healthy as organic, pasture-raised eggs. So when we look at pasture-raised versus caged hens, what possible difference could that make? What's the big deal if they're in a cage or if they're free? Right? Well, we know about energy of food. We know about energy in particular, and we are energetic beings. We're basically bags of water with currents running through us. That is, and what makes us special is our consciousness or our spirit that inhabits this bag of water with the current going through it. And this is all energy. It's all about the exchange of energy. And even things we think are solid, as we've learned, are not solid at all. They're just really dense energies. And when you try and put your hand through a wall, for example, your hand will be repelled by the wall, not because you're solid and the wall is solid, but because there are forces that will repel you from the wall, because the wall is really dense and so is your hand. And so what science is telling us is what ancient traditions have told us for thousands and thousands of years, and that is that we are energy beings. We're beings of light. And so if you cage an animal and take it out of its natural habitat and you force it to eat a diet that is not its own, and you force it to be in a very crowded, unsanitary, inhumane place, the energy of that animal is going to shift. And so will the food that that animal produces. Just like us. If we were to be caged, even if we had other people with us, but if we were in an overcrowded situation, our energy would very quickly shift. Our behavior would be altered. Our thinking would be altered. And therefore our frequency and our vibration would be altered. And so if we do that to animals, the vibration and the frequency of these animals will undoubtedly be altered, as will the things that they produce. So because we rely on hens to produce eggs for us to consume, these eggs will also have an altered frequency and energy. And when we consume that egg, it will alter our frequency and energy. So as we know from ancient traditions, whether we look at the Egyptians, the Sumerians, whether we look at the Asians, the ancient Chinese, in India, whether it be the American Indians or the Asian Indians, they all say the same thing, and that is that we are all connected and we are inseparable from each other and our environment. And so if we consume something that is of a low vibration, it lowers our own vibration, and it creates densities in the body that may produce disease. And so it becomes a little bit easier for us to see why the Journal of the American Medical Association will associate an increased risk of heart disease with consumption of non-organic eggs. It's very likely that the vast majority of the 30,000 people that were surveyed about their diet were not eating organic eggs. Why? Because, well, number one, they're a little bit more expensive in price. I always have to be careful when I say something's expensive, because what's expensive is a heart attack, not an egg. What's expensive is the loss of function after a heart attack or a stroke. What's expensive is not being able to enjoy life because you're paralyzed or because you don't have the capacity to be as active anymore. You know, heart disease and strokes are major catastrophic incidents that alter people's lives forever. So that's expensive, in my opinion, not an organic egg. So when we look at the price tag of something, we have to really look at it in its proper perspective. You know, what's expensive? Is it the billions and billions of dollars that we spend on the drugs that are used to keep people from dying when they have a heart attack, or the surgeries that they have to have, or the rehabilitation that they have, the ongoing medications they need to consume, and to say nothing of the quality of life that they lose, not being able to play with their children or their grandchildren, not being able to exercise in the same way that they would want to, not being able to participate in the simplest of things that used to bring them joy. That, in my opinion, is way more expensive than buying a dozen organic pasture-raised eggs. So I would encourage everyone to reexamine, when you make your food choices, think of the long-term expense, not just the short-term expense. We're seeing over and over again, studies are clear in their confusion. The fact that it's confusing makes it clear. The fact that it's confusing, eat eggs 1 minute, don't eat eggs the next, gives us a very clear path, in fact. It helps us to question. It makes us question more. How are we selecting our food? How are we, how can we bring consumer demand to the table and force this change in a positive way? So when we come back, we'll talk about the aspirin study that came out this week, and I'll take your questions. Again, thanks for listening to Awakened Wellness with Milen Rioba, MD. Please give us a call, area code 833-220-1200. We'll be right back.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Milen Rioba, MD. Tune in every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Time with live shows on the first and third mornings when you can call in and ask Dr. Milen the questions that